When I say that a map is bad, what I specifically mean here is that the map is just poorly designed for modern Team Fortress 2. I would think that most people would agree that there are a lot of bad maps in TF2, most of them being on the older side due to their irrelevancy and the best bad map in TF2. For me, that award goes to Dustbowl. It checks all of the boxes for an outdated, poorly designed, yet fun and unique experience. Not only are you a terribly designed choke fest of a map that I can't stop having fun on, but you're the reason that I'm where I am today.
There are intricate things to learn about Dustbowl, but they're not quite as blatant as some other maps. They're just little jumps you can do here and there to let you get access to different areas of certain classes. The map knowledge on Dustbowl is important because it's a multi-stage map. You've got a whole lot of content to get through in one sitting. Players are used to the luxury of multiple flank routes in big open areas, whereas Dustbowl really punishes a bad decision because you're stuck in a tiny little choke point. While Dustbowl might not be everyone's cup of tea and it might not be the highest end of play you'll find in the TF2 server, I think it still has its place in the TF2 world and in the community, and it's certainly not a map that I would consider to be blatantly bad.
In my many years of playing Dustbowl, I've heard a lot of things about it. I've heard that it has too many choke points, that it lasts too long, that there aren't enough flank routes, and so on. And throughout these years, I've heard many people and many YouTubers make their case for why Dustbowl is bad without really talking about what makes it bearable, let alone good. That second video clip of Red Robot talking about it was the most positive review of the map that I could find, and I still feel like he didn't go into much detail. Instead, he said some general things like how it's a large, multi-stage map that can be rewarding to those who understand the layout, and how its chokiness allows for easy kills even for noobs. But outside of that, he really just said the same thing that Uncle Dane would later say in his review video, which is that Dustbowl was made for an older version of TF2, and that with all of the new content we've gotten since its 2007 release, it has grown more unbalanced and unenjoyable. And I think most of us have unconsciously accepted this idea that Dustbowl is a bad map whose popularity only derives from its infamy and the fact that it's one of the classics. But in this video, I'd like to offer a different, more positive review of the map, explaining 3 simple things that I like about it. And just a quick disclaimer before I begin, I have nothing against Uncle Dane or Red Robot. I think they've both made great content, and I have nothing but respect for them. I simply use their videos to provide a bit of context, and at the end of the day, they, along with anybody else, can have their own opinion on Dustbowl and whatever else they want. And with that out of the way, let's begin. So the first thing I want to talk about is the layout of the map. Looking at it from an aerial view, you can see all of the narrow corridors scattered throughout. It has a few open areas, but is mostly close ranged. This is in stark contrast to Egypt, which has few tight corridors and mostly takes place in wide open areas. If we were to look at every map this way and create a scale with the left side representing chokiness and the right side representing openness, Dustbowl would sit around the left end of the spectrum, and most people would see this as a problem. But I think that a map being choky doesn't inherently mean it's bad, and that people are quick to assume that a good map must lie somewhere in the middle, which on its own doesn't make much sense as it equates to the middle ground fallacy, but let's not get into logic. Instead, let me explain why I like the choky nature of Dustbowl and why I think it works. Right off the bat, it forces you to be smart with your movement, which leaves you feeling satisfied after making the right calls. Because players know that you can only be in so many places at any given moment, you have to make the right choices in quick time, or else you risk getting trapped in a tight corridor, caught up in incoming spam, or ambushed by an inescapable wave of enemies. By being repeatedly punished for making the wrong calls, you're forced to learn how to make the right ones, which develops your game sense and trains you to be more particular with your movement and shots. Take this part of Dustbowl, for instance. If you're standing on this roof and enemies come flooding out of both spawn gates, you have to make a quick decision on whether to engage them, and if so, for how long. You have a very limited space to work with little to no cover, so there aren't many options available. Now, let's look at this area in Swiftwater, which is a more open map, and assume that the same thing happens. Enemies start flooding out of both sides of their spawn. Well, you only really have to worry about this side, since the other side is preoccupied with the payload cart and fighting other teammates bunched up over here. And you have a safe, comfortable place to retreat back into accompanied by an ammo and med pack. Ultimately, you have fewer enemies to fight, more space to work with, more options available, all at a smaller risk. This brings me back to an earlier point I made about the middle ground fallacy, because Dustbowl is on the left end and Swiftwater is on the right, but I think that both maps are great. They just provide a different experience. If you want to have a more challenging and calculated experience where you have to make split-second decisions with high risks, Dustbowl is perfect. If you want to have more options, more space, and more cover, Swiftwater is perfect. So to conclude my first point, I don't think that Dustbowl being choky, or even Swiftwater being open for that matter, ruins those maps and makes them bad. Instead, I think that Dustbowl's chokiness works great and makes for a very challenging yet entertaining game. The second thing that I love about Dustbowl is its props. They're not just there to make the map look pretty. Their presence significantly alters gameplay in a way that would fundamentally change the map if removed. To better understand what I mean, let's look at a couple of examples, starting with this one. If you're playing as heavy on red and you want to get here, your only option is for somebody to open this gate and let you in, or to walk all the way to the first control point, up the stairs, and through the tunnel. And chances are you'll die if you try to do that. So, instead, you can parkour across these diagonal beams to get to that spot in literal seconds, which would otherwise be near impossible to get to. It can also be useful when playing other classes like Soldier or Demo if you don't want to waste health, rocket, or sticky jumping up there. And even if you don't want to get across, it can still be a pretty good hiding spot to ambush incoming blue players. In the second example, we have a pallet resting against a wall. You can literally jump right on top of it to gain quick access to the upper walkway, which is incredibly useful for maneuvering around. Sometimes I'll use it to get the jump on an enemy coming from the tunnels underneath, or if I'm retreating as red and need to grab these 2 health and ammo packs, or I'll just simply use it just like I'd use a staircase. And we have practically the same thing on the other side with this barricade, which I see almost everybody use. These props, as little as they may seem to a new player glossing over the map, function just like a staircase or a bridge would. They're connections between different parts of the map, but they take a unique and interesting form that keeps you engaged, unlike walking up your typical staircase or over a simple bridge. The last thing I want to talk about is the game length. Whenever you capture a point in Dustbowl, 4.5 minutes are added to the game timer, often leading to 20-minute timers in the last round. Egypt, on the other hand, only adds 3 minutes to the timer, which is 33% shorter, so games feel much quicker there. Personally, this doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I always look forward to playing those stalematey 20-minute rounds while trying to attack or defend the 6th control point. It's like this giant epic showdown, and taking the win at the 19 to 20 minute mark is probably the most satisfying feeling I get when playing TF2. Think of it like winning a marathon versus winning a 100-meter dash. Taking a quick win in a matter of minutes won't feel nearly as good as taking one after nearly half an hour of combat. I'm curious to know what you guys think about Dustbowl and whether you agree or disagree with what I said. So leave a comment sharing your thoughts and I'll be sure to look over it. At the end of the day, no matter what I say, there will be people who will continue to hate Dustbowl, and that's fine. I just wanted to share with you all a few reasons why I love it. Heck, I've made a bunch of videos on it already, so if I don't love it, I don't know who does. And maybe it'll start a conversation about what really constitutes a good map to help shape the future of mapping for the better. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is LED, switching off.